here we are for the second video, and I switch immediately to the slide we were in at the end of the first, which is about the mobility frame, as you know. And we have had a quick look at what the second chapter, the glossary, will contain, and this is the third chapter, the mobility frame process scheme. And just to share with you what were the principles we adopted when we decided how to set up this document. I go through this list very quickly. The first principle that we were discussing about is move the teachers first. That means that if you want to reach a real effective and continuous stable frame of mobility in which the schools believe and participate actively, you need to involve in a very strong way the teachers. If the teachers themselves don't believe in mobility and don't believe there are benefits for the students to go abroad, they won't push for it, and they won't sustain it, and they won't help the school to host foreign teachers. So the first issue for us is how to move the teachers and how to involve them in a process of mobility of students. And this issue is in some way collegated, related with the announcement guide and matching activities between students and hosting bodies, because we believe that normally, even in the Erasmus Plus Key A1 mobility projects, this element is weak. Weak because seldom the students can visit and go in the countries and in the schools or companies they would like to go to before the internship. Usually everything is made like in a blind meeting, you know, so the people and the matching between the participants is made without any possibility to visit and touch with your hand the place and where we are gonna go for maybe 2 or 3 months before. And this problem could be easily solved with initiatives I will tell you about the catalog of guidance visits. And then we also need a minimum common reference of assessment, and at least we thought we could work a bit on the set of European Union key competence set for lifelong learning, the 8 key competence which are known, I think, from all of you, and we make a choice among those key competence, but it's a proposal for the group, and if the groups that are gonna to be set up during these days would prefer to work on different things or focus more on one of them, things can be changed, as we shall see in a while. Those we have chosen are anyway 7 possibilities of work group to be done. The designing part during the work groups in the meeting, and to be concluded with the homework done with your colleagues when you go back home. And with the final meeting in Vlore, we will draw the final versions of the papers. So the common reference of assessment is the issue we will go through with the next presentation today. And focus on user value is the same thing. I mean, how can we guarantee that the assessment we do have got a recognition at the end, and it is not just a piece of paper to be put on the wall. The aim of the feasibility study is to, in some way, standardize the proposal. So to have a common catalog of economic discovery study visits and a clear cost frame, possibly, and a set of assessment sheets that can be used by all the schools. And last but not least is to join forces to get further funding for mobility sustainability, because we can have a dream and I mean write beautiful theoretical processes and phases and ideal approaches, but if we don't have the money, then obviously everything stays on paper. And so we would like to, during our meetings, find also the ways to get the money that can help us to carry out and build this this user mobility frame. So if there are any other innovative elements you believe we should take in consideration, that's the moment to discuss today. And we can obviously include in the feasibility study those new items you would suggest. As for the mobility frame, this scheme of process has been drawn starting from an original one developed in another European project called TRACK, which was about how to assess the learning outcomes of an internship in a company abroad, so a very difficult task, I must say. And to arrive to this element, we worked also in another project, which was called PREMO, which was linked to the second one, to TRACK. So PREMO and TRACK were two projects going on together. And PREMO was about the ex-ante activities. So the main focus was what I have to do before and how can I organize in the best way a mobility bring somebody inside the company. Obviously here we have a different situation. We don't go through companies, but I wouldn't exclude that, because in the future probably it would be interesting to work on mobility sets that include companies, and so I will speak of companies as well in my presentations. But we are now here to solve one problem in the beginning, in the first step, and it's how to move students between schools and vocational education and training providers. So the steps in a mobility frame are planning, and so planning is based mainly on mobility for mutual trust, I'd say. I call it like that. It means those things I was telling you before: move teachers first, have teachers believing in this thing, and believing those teachers of other countries and other schools are good and can help them to train their students in the best way. The second element of mobility planning is guidance and an effective trainee school matching. And for this element as well, we could really improve the current methodologies using the Go-and-Learn approach, as I will tell you in a while. And the training plan formalization, which is in some way more standardized, and probably we have here more constraints coming from the founding body, which normally decides the terms and the contents of the training plan. But we can decide, for example, that we adopt when there are not predefined plans. We can adopt the Europass scheme for that. As for the mobility startup, we have the language training, cultural training and preparation activities, schedule planning, logistic arrangements. All of these probably are well known and I mean, most of you already experienced them, and there are a lot of literature and schemes that can be adopted. There will be some suggestion mainly about these process phases, let's say. But it's not the main focus, as well as the mobility execution, where you have a welcome and preamble. So when the student comes in the beginning, maybe in some way we can here conclude the mobility planning process, checking the training plan with the actual conditions, because when you write the training plan, maybe it's 1 year before, 6 months before, and then many things can happen during that period. The in-school activities, monitoring feedback, which are in some way linked to the issue of evaluation. And the last step, is the mobility conclusion, where we basically speak of assessment. And in our paper, I am suggesting to include a two-step process of assessment. The first one made by the hosting school. This assessment should be based on the USAID European Union Key Competence set that we hopefully are going to develop during the work group activities. And the second step is the sender school validation. I mean, when the students come back, I can also carry out some more in-depth professional learning outcome verification that can carry out some study credit to be recognized to the student. So while I, let's say, give mutual trust to the hosting school, blind mutual trust, I mean, I believe them that they check the key competence set, and the feedback coming from that assessment should be just be recognized. As for the professional competence improvement, we would leave to the sender school the validation. Those steps have got two elements, some benefits, some outcomes, and some standards to refer to. These columns are going to show you in the planning what we get. So we get network development, increased mobility rates, effective matching, consciousness of choice. We can organize interviews for the students with the schools hosting them. We have a more careful training planning and schedule. We have transparent learning outcomes because we have a good training plan formalization. This is the outcomes we expect from this first step. But these outcomes should refer to some standard that we have to decide if we like to adopt or not in the user mobility frame. And so the first standard could be the Go and Learn circuits the Go Learn circuits approach, and which will help us for the network development and guidance of students and motivation of teachers. We can have competence standards, both transversal or professional, to help us designing the training plan. A scheme of individual training plan, which is common if possible. A local curricula, which we refer to also, the European Union Key Competence Standards, and sectoral professional standards. So we can refer for the training plan formalization to very different sets. The one we will work on in the workshops is the first one, which is specifically dedicated to enhance the mutual trust and the guidance effectiveness. As for the mobility startup, we expect those activities listed in the first column to drive and to lead us to better learning results, higher foreign language skills, knowledge of context, intercultural competencies enhancement, curricula synchronization, between the two schools, sending and hosting, a good travel planning, the decision of the lodging assets, so in family, in boarding schools or whatever, and to also the constraints we can give to a hosting body. The students must live in a family which is not distance more than half an hour from the school or 1 hour from the school. It's very common to have some of these agreements that allow me to know how the hosting body will organize itself, and I have the guarantee that the criteria are the same for all the students moving. And here we can have as a standards to refer to the key competence 2 and 6, which are the foreign language competence set and the intercultural competence set. We have the Primo project recommendations to refer to, and I have them in a file that I will exchange with you. The Erasmus KA1 rules and also budget levels. For example, if we decide to use the KA1 to move our students, we must refer to this, let's say, rule. And if any, a user standard, the one we say, when you move within the user frame, you should have something specific available. As for the mobility execution, the outcomes we expect from this phase is to have to give the life, to carry out the hosting procedures as expected. And I think that the hosting procedures, the first days are very important to have a good mobility period for the students moving. Trainers and schoolmates helping integration, aware of what's happening, check of the training plan feasibility. As I said before, very often the training plans are written 3, 4, 6 months before the activity takes place. So the first one of the first steps during the hosting procedures is to check if all the conditions to carry out the training plan are good, let's say, and the feasibility is guaranteed, or if the training plan should be rearranged in some way. Then we have the delivery of lessons or job experience if we go in a company. We have to organize the feedback and the learning assessment. In this case, the standards we can use are those we will define, for example, for the key competencies we will develop. We can refer to the ITP content. ITP is the training plan, the individual training plan. Feedback forms that we maybe we are forced to be used by the funding body or those that we decide to adopt as a common feedback form to be given to all the students by the participant to a user mobility frame experience. And we will have the standard situation sheets that we the typical situation sheets that we will develop as help for the assessment carried out by the Austin School. And then the last step, we expect as mobility conclusion phase an official certification of the mobility. It could be Europass or something else, a student portfolio updated with relevant and well described competencies and in some way some process of credits recognition, maybe professional or study credits. In this case we have a Europass certificate we will refer to for sure because it's a very good standard and frame, I think. The user SST set, the individual training program, and even obviously the local curricula assessment standards, because if I'm doing a course, a 5-year course in a school in Italy, when I come back maybe there could be some competence or some outcome foreseen by my curricula that can be recognized. And so in this case I should and must recognize the credit study. So this is the process scheme drawn within the feasibility study, and for each of these steps there are some recommendations, but the focus and the work that two groups should do are two, as I already told you many times. The first one is a common guidance approach, and the second one is a common assessment frame. And the choices that the expert group have made and the steering committee have made is that for the purpose of the guidance, we would try to develop a catalogue of study visits and study circuits, guidance circuits in the schools or VIT centers, participating to the network of exchange. And the second one, the common assessment frame, is intended to develop a set of evaluation and observation sheets that can help the teachers to evaluate the increase and the learning outcomes of the mobility experience in terms of European key competencies that we will go through in the next presentation. Thank you very much. So now I close and save this file as well. .2. Bye.